All right, Shalom Israel. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakal Kodash, for allowing me to do another lesson. Yahweh is who the world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is his son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, and there's no God beside them. I want to give double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone for being faithful witnesses to the Holy Spirit. And shalom to the elect whom the Lord have given ears to hear. I wanted to do a lesson based upon this article I found actually yesterday, going into a peace that is no peace. So let's get it. So it says, a peace that is no peace. Could the new Cold War turn nuclear? All right. And if you understand the scriptures, which is what our jobs as prophets of the Lord is to do, break down current events and marry them with the Bible. If you understand the scriptures, it's not if, but when nuclear war happens. The scriptures constantly speak on fire and brimstone. That's another word for nuclear war. That's the Third World War. As we see, the First and Second World War didn't necessarily have those technologies. So what technology can bring fire and brimstone? Right? It has to be a nuke. It has to be nukes. In which, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I got it. It says right here, right? The first atomic bomb was detonated on July 16th, 1945. Now, let me see. Right, World War II ended in 1945. All right, so I stand corrected. Actually, towards the end of World War II, an atomic bomb was used. Nevertheless, the scriptures speak about a third woe. Since the news spread quickly and celebrations erupted, right, so that was used. So the atomic bomb was used in World War II. This would made Japan surrender. However, there's something much more fierce that's going to be used in this next war. It's called a nuclear war. It's called a nuclear warheads. All right. And contrary to atomic bombs, this bomb entails what? Fission and fusion. Right, so atomic bombs, right, which were used towards the end of World War II. It says atomic bombs, also known as fission weapons, these bombs split heavy atomic nuclei into lighter ones. The explosive yield of atomic bombs is measured in kilotons, where 1 kiloton is equal to the explosive force of 1,000 tons of TNT. Now, it says a thermonuclear bomb can be hundreds or thousands of times more powerful than atomic bombs. For example, the Tsar Bomba, a thermonuclear bomb detonated by the Soviet Union in 1961,
was 50 megatons, which is about 3,333 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Right? So these are the times we're entering into. So now I want to go back to this article, which is a peace that is no peace. Could the new Cold War turn nuclear? The existence of 2 or 3 major military powers with colossal stockpiles of nuclear weapons is supposed to reduce the likelihood of Armageddon. So has it? Right? Because in the eyes of the average person, it's understood as mutually assured destruction. Right? So if you don't want that get back, then you're going to keep your hands in your pocket, so to speak. All right? But it says in late 1945, the preeminent author of several fictional dystopias, George Orwell, published a column entitled You and the Atomic Bomb. Addressing a wide readership, this classic of 20th century literature suggested that the impact on the course of history of such a technological innovation as nuclear weapons would be far greater than anything that had ever happened before. It says, we may now be approaching a time when the course of world politics will either confirm Orwell's judgment and the predictions based on it, or tragically disprove it. To make matters worse, even learning from past global tensions between nuclear powers is no panacea, which that word panacea means like a cure-all. Their position in the world has changed significantly over the past 30 years, and the most acute indirect conflict is taking place in close physical proximity to Russia's main administrative and industrial centers. This is why many serious observers now have some misgivings about whether the U.S. strategy, which in the most generous terms seeks to replicate the logic of confrontation with Moscow from 1945 to 1991, is the right one. And according to the Lord, it is the right one. As a matter of fact, the Bible calls Russia Gog. So it says, Ezekiel 38 verse 1. And a word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And I will bring thee forth in all thy army, and horsemen and horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shield, all of them handling swords. So essentially the Lord is having Russia being turned back into that Soviet Union mind state. All right, and he's putting the spirit on America to continue to antagonize them. Okay, let me jump to Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 1. Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back, and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. All right, because essentially the Lord is going to allow, or the Lord is going to put it in Russia's mind to come upon Israel. Right, so they're going to take some of their army to fight against the land of Israel. And essentially, America's going to have to jump in because America backs Israel, as we all know. And I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and will cause thine arrows to fall out of thy right hand. So a bow and an arrow is characterized as a nuclear missile. Brothers will always go into it. The term for a stolen missile, let's look it up. What is the term? Military. Right. It says the military refers to the theft, seizure, or loss of a nuclear weapon as a broken arrow. All right. So there's no coincidence. And then the scriptures call them arrows as well. Second Ezra chapter 16 verse 12. The earth quaketh and the foundations thereof. The sea ariseth up with waves from the deep, and the waves of it are troubled. And the fishes thereof also before the Lord, and before the glory of his power. For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp, and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world. So you have today something known as intercontinental ballistic missiles. All right, which is nuclear warheads that can be shot to the ends of the earth. All right, and again, the Lord himself calls them arrows as well. So it's coming. It's only a matter of time, but it's coming. So it says, let's go back to that article. It says, if we try to summarize Orwell's supposition, it boils down to the fact that the acquisition by 2 or 3 powers of such tremendous opportunities to destroy not only each other, but the whole of humanity changes the whole disposition of world history. Previously, as we know, it was always based on the ability of powers to kick back at the existing world order. And the consequences of such revolutions became fundamental to the next. Post the atomic bomb, Orwell wrote, all the nations of the world have been prevented from thinking that such a move could be successful for them. The nuclear powers can't, because a world war would lead to their guaranteed destruction. And the small and medium-sized ones can't because of the relative weakness of their militaries. On the face of it, it seems to be true. By acting according to the old methods, i.e. by resorting to military force, none of the developing powers can now qualitatively change their position in the world. Hence the axiom that it is impossible to defeat a nuclear power in war. So that word axiom means an accepted truth, a statement or proposition which is regarded as being established, accepted, or self-evidently true. All right, so hence the truth, or the truthful statement that it is impossible to defeat a nuclear power in war, and that the only threat to it is itself. Right? And as it is written, if Satan cast out Satan, how can his kingdom stand? And the Lord is going to destroy these nations. The last man to stand is Yahushua and his elect. Nobody else will stand, when Yahushua comes, which he's coming with the thousands of angels, and he's coming with that fire. He's the one that's elevating these wars, if you didn't know. Right? When you read the the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, the Lord speaks about how, is it Daniel 7 or Daniel 2? How there will be a stone that's cut out without hands that's going to destroy that image. Right? So when the Lord comes back, he's going to destroy the powers that be on the earth. We know that the Lord is for Israel, whereas the scriptures say Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Right? So as Esau, the man of war, the man of blood, right, is constantly making these, can never be at peace, making these wars, he's going to fall, as it is also written, he that liveth by the sword shall fall by the sword, shall die by the sword. Right? So yeah, this is beautiful news to us, and it will happen. It is likely to put an end to the large-scale wars at the cost of prolonging indefinitely a peace that is no peace. The first premise has so far been confirmed. Even economically powerful China does not yet appear to have arsenals comparable to those of Russia and the US. The second, the end of major wars, needs more evidence. The accumulation of this is the main issue facing world politics today, however painful it may be for our thoughts about our own future. Orwell writes that nuclear superpowers are states that are unconquerable and are therefore in a permanent state of Cold War with their neighbors. Which I looked up that term, a peace that is no peace. It says, a peace that is no peace is a phrase coined by British author and journalist George Orwell in 1945 to describe the political, social, and economic climate of the second half of the 20th century. Orwell believed that the world would be living in a Cold War after World War II, a stable international system that was marked by a number of factors, including the emergence of superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, the deployment of new weapon systems, the manipulation of terror, a lack of many promised freedoms, war preparation, controlled conflict, and targeted repressions becoming normal. Right? And I think it's time to bring out this precept, Revelation chapter 11, I think it's 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Right? And again, as we go into the history, even George Orwell, which was alive around that time, he even said, the level of tension following World War II, was pretty much like, I could say, you can cut it with a knife, something to that extent. It was very sharp. It was very thick. And I remember, what was it, a year or two ago, they came out with that movie Oppenheimer. And I mean, it's pretty long, but it's informative in the fact that even Oppenheimer himself understood that with this technology, it can do a lot of devastation. And mind you, that's just the atomic bomb. And when he after he created it, I believe, he went to go see the president. Who was the president at the time? Eisenhower, I believe. Pretty much his warnings were set by. Right? Esau, being the devil that he is, being a man of blood that he is, and the scriptures call him the red horse. Revelation 6, power was given him to take peace from the earth. Right? But that was like a flex for him. Yeah, but it says the third woe cometh quickly. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe is past. Woe is synonymous with death. When you look at it, even the statistics of it, of all the wars, World War I and World War II brought forth the most death. I think next to that was the genocide of the tribes. You know, the so-called Native Americans, the indigenous people. But it says, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. So that describes World War I, II, and III. Then it says, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the four angels, which are bound in a great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. Right? Because from that portion of the earth, near the river Euphrates, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, the Arabian Peninsula, that area over there, that's where World War III is going to really pop off, and therefore the nukes, all right, is going to be the icing on the cake. And the four angels were loose, which were prepared. You see, so again, the Lord is preparing war, right? We had the angels, as it is also written in Proverbs 21, that the Lord turneth the hearts of the king whithersoever he will. So it says, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third parts of men. Now, as we know, we should know, only the Lord truly knows. I'm talking about Yahweh, the Most High, truly knows when he's going to allow this thing to happen. He's going to send his son back and allow those nukes to be shot off. Nevertheless, he does have a day set aside for this. And the number of the army of horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. That's the number of missiles. 200,000 stands for 200 million. Right? And you might say, well, it's not that many missiles. But mind you, what does damage, as the scriptures also say, as we're going to read, what does damage is the mouth. Right? So you have a portion of the missile that propels it, and then the head of it has like maybe 10, 12, 15 or whatever in the head of it. So it says, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire and jacinth and brimstone. Let's look up what jacinth is. Let's see. This is a red color bordering black. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. So look at that. Brimstone, which goes into sulfur. This is the chemical element of atomic number 16. Let's see, what is atomic number 16? An element's atomic number represented the number of protons. Okay. So let's look up this. What creates sulfur? Damn. Whew. Sulfur is often found in nature as a yellow mineral associated with volcanoes and hot springs. The Bible mentions sulfur 15 times, and some associated with wrath and hellfire. I mean, shit, that's a hell of a gas. It says sulfur itself can also burn, producing a blue flame in sulfur dioxide gas. Sulfur is combustible in both solid and molten forms and ignites at temperatures above 200 degrees Celsius. Let's see. Just want to see one thing before we go back. So would you look at that? Fire and brimstone goes back to Sodom and Gomorrah. As you see, divine judgment. Right? So something the Lord is going to bring forth that is so super duper hot that it's going to bring forth fire and brimstone. By these three, it says, and out of their mouths issue fire, smoke, and brimstone. All right, it says, by these, which issue out of their mouth, for their powers in their mouth and their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands. Going to show you that not everybody's going to be destroyed from those nuclear missiles. Some will be saved. All right. As it is written, you know, Yahushua told his disciples, some of you should not taste of death. And then for the wicked, some of the wicked, they're going to be hiding in the mountains, like it tells us in Amos 9. That they should not worship devils and idols in gold, silver, brass, stone, of wood, neither can see, nor hear, nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. But, yeah, man. This day is coming, and it's going to be a very tragic day. And that's putting it lightly. But now, finishing off this article, Cold War, in the Orwellian sense of the term, thus remains the most important feature of world politics in the nuclear age. And it is not at all surprising that the U.S. is guided by the very rules it has learned over the past decades. First and foremost, it is a lack of responsibility for the fate of those through whose hands the U.S. is waging its proxy war. And again, it's not going to learn until that World War III happens. And then U.S. is going to be taken off the map. All right? Isaiah 34, Revelation 18. Simply because the U.S. does not link its own security to their survival. And if you did not know, America is known as spiritual Sodom. Right? Spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it's obviously why. America is also known as the virgin daughter of Babylon. This means that America cannot fully understand the possible reaction of an enemy to the actions of those it uses to achieve its objectives. So as the old saying goes, the chickens will come home to roost. What goes around comes around. Because the proxies are not official representatives or citizens of U.S., Washington feels is not formally responsible for their actions. Some observers have pointed out that some radical movements in Syria receive support from abroad, for example, Turkey, but this has little effect on Russia's relations with its sponsors.
China once actively used radical Marxist movements in Southeast Asia and provided them with various forms of support. However, this didn't turn its relations with countries where such... Okay. Let me jump down. Washington did not see this as a reason for a bigger conflict. From the point of view of any normal state, only direct aggression by the other side against its national territory is a reason for war. Perhaps that's why the U.S. doesn't believe its actions in Ukraine could prompt direct conflict with Russia. But it remains to be seen to what extent such logic can work now that the conflict is taking place in the immediate vicinity of the capital of the Russian state, and now, for example, in distant Afghanistan, especially since NATO's policy of enlargement over the past 30 years has created a number of opportunities for the U.S. that also pose challenges. After all, the bloc's members in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, are perceived in Washington and Moscow as nothing more than American proxies whose involvement in hostilities has little to do with the direct threat that Russia and the U.S. might pose to each other. Needless to say, the potential threats and upheavals that a scenario based on such an assumption could entail are enormous. You know, and the scriptures even speak about proxy wars. There's wars, rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for the end is not yet. Right? These proxy wars, which obviously nobody's going to, to the outside person, it's like a war on terror. But to the inside person, it's like, I know, I know you got ties, and I know you're pretty much being a thorn on my side using this puppet, and vice versa. But essentially, like the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw him out. So what is America's going to have to get hands on. The scriptures say how the Lord shall drive off the northern army. Going to drive them off where? To the Middle East. Right? They're going to have to defend their territory. No matter how much BS Israel does, America is going to continue to defend them. Nor should we ignore the not fully understood link between the foreign policy positions of the great powers and their domestic stability. We can see that much of the American nervousness about what is happening in the world is related to the need to continue to benefit from the overall functioning of the global political and economic system. Not only is it difficult for the U.S. to accept change in this area because of the inertia of its thinking, but it can be dangerous until the U.S. establishment finds other effective ways of keeping the situation under control at home, especially since the general crisis of the socio-economic system created by the West since the mid-70s is not going away, but only gaining momentum. Yes, generally speaking, the presence of 2 or 3 military powers with colossal stockpiles of nuclear weapons reduces the likelihood of a general war in the traditional sense. But the state of peace that is no peace, promised by the classicists, still looks like a balancing act on the verge of something that will render all theoretical constructs meaningless. And again, essentially the Lord is balancing this thing out because he has various prophecies to come to pass. The prophets were to come on the scene. The elect were to wake up through the prophets coming on the scene. Esau, through the prophets being on the scene, will have to attempt to demonize us, and some of them should be beheaded. That all had to happen prior to the world war to come to fruition. Right? You can read down on your leisure in Matthew 24. All right, but remember, essentially war will happen.
Right? Again, you could read that in Matthew 24, start at like 3 on down. I'm going to start at 6. Ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And again, we're seeing that. You know, whether you say it's man-made or not, we understand that this devil has crazy technology to where, you know, he can cause tsunamis. He can cause earthquakes, which brings tsunamis, earthquakes, which bring landslides, which again, you know, he works for the Lord at the end of the day. All right. But just to show you that in the midst of World War I, World War II, and World War III, these things will be happening. All right. And then you have the prophets, which predominantly came forth through Albert Bivens. Albert Bivens was created the One West in the 70s, all the way up until now. And look how close we are to World War III. All right? And this was all the Lord's plans, if you didn't know. Right? As you read through, it talks about false prophets. Again, the insurrection against those that fear the Lord. Now, some of this, you know, you have to be careful because some of it does talk about 70 AD. All right, but hey, that's why you have to go to the men of understanding to see, you know, because a lot of these scriptures, most people don't understand. They might say already happened already. All right, but the Bible tells all. The politics of the beginning, the middle, and the end of all kingdoms. So let me finish it off here, Baruch chapter 4, verse 30. Verse 33. And you might ask why? Why is this happening? What's going on? Like, why can't the earth be at peace? For as she rejoiced at thy ruin, 4 verse 30. Right? Because in the midst of all of this, as I brought out the point of the prophets going out there and preaching, in the midst of all of this, the elect, you know, will be saved. The Lord likened the downfall of this place as the downfall of Sodom. I mean the downfall of Egypt. And remember, before the Lord completely destroyed that Egyptian army, he saved his people. So in the midst of World War III, when the American army is getting obliterated, and all of our, because, you know, we're not just in America, we're all across the world. All of our enemies is being obliterated. The Lord is going to make a way to save his chosen, his people, the Israel of God. Take a good heart, O Jerusalem, for he that gave thee that name will comfort thee. Miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall. Miserable are the cities which thy children serve. Miserable is she that received thy sons. You know, because although these nations are at war, and they got all this going on, you know, they got war, economic problems, military issues, they don't forget to continue to bring hell upon you tribes. And it says, miserable are the cities which thy children serve. Miserable is she that received thy sons. Hell, at the point of war, or because of wars, is why, you know, is why the people mourn. But it says, you know, wars bring famine and pestilences. For as she rejoiced at thy ruin, and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation. Because this place is going to be desolated. For I will take away the rejoicing of a great multitude, and her pride shall be turned into mourning. You know, and that American pride is great, very great. There's months, various months and various days celebrated just for that. When you look up the history of that, you know, that pride thing, they say it started in what I believe they said the first one started in like Greenwich Village, New York. Type of Pride Day, some shit like that. For fire shall come upon her from the everlasting. Again, her is the virgin daughter of Babylon, long to endure, and she shall be inhabited of devils for a great time. And I mentioned it often, but I'll grab it. So Isaiah 34 is good, as I mentioned. You know how the Lord is going to bring war, and the end of it thereof. The streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone. Isaiah 34 and 8. Yeah, Isaiah 34 and 8. Joel 3 you can read. Also goes into like why the Lord is doing what he's doing for the controversy of Israel. Let me see, that's a good one. Revelation 18. And 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is become the habitation of devils, and the hole of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So again, proving that that Baruch 4, Isaiah 34, when he's speaking about complete destruction of a particular place, is talking about Babylon. All right, where it says it should be inhabited of devils, or pretty much desert creatures for a long time. For fire shall come upon her from the everlasting, long to endure. She shall be inhabited of devils for a great time. O Jerusalem, look about thee towards the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from God. Because Yahushua is going to come in the midst of war. Tells us that in 2nd Ezra 13. He's going to come in the midst of war, destroy our enemies, and come save us. Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sentest away. They come gathered together from the east to the west, by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of God. You know, and it makes perfect sense why, you know, before World War III can commence, you know, the internet had to be created. The elect had to wake up. And in the midst of this devil increasing in his technology and his knowledge, the elect would also increase through that same technology. Right? Rejoicing in the word of the Holy One, which is what we predominantly use the internet for, to push the word, all right, to the four corners of the earth. So that was it. You know, Lord willing, you Akim and you feel Akwaf were edified. Continue to study to show thyself approved. Right? I know there's a lot said in a lot of these videos. I mean, we'll be here for hours getting into every single nook and cranny. But Lord willing, you know, the point was made. And you were edified. Shalom.